Rannoch.
I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper.
My Lords, Part 3A of the Public Order Act 1986 relates to hatred against persons on religious or sexual orientation grounds. Section 29J provides that Part 3A should not be interpreted in a way that prohibits discussion or encouragement to cease practising of particular religions or beliefs. There is no criminal offence in the UK of hate speech.
My Lords, I thank the noble lady for that reply, but I fear we are on our way to losing our freedom of speech in this area. So, can I repeat a question I put a year ago, which the government refused to answer? Namely, whether a Christian who proclaims that Jesus is the only Son of the one true God can be arrested for hate speech if a Muslim feels insulted and complains to the police. And by the same token, my Lords, can a Muslim be arrested for preaching the supreme divinity of Allah if a Christian takes offence? And second, my Lords, can the government assure your Lordships that it is not going to follow a new judgment from the Strasbourg court, which upholds Austria's criminalisation of a lady who said that Muhammad was a paedophile? Or, my Lords, are we to have a new blasphemy law which prohibits discussion of Islam?
My Lords, the noble Lord asked me a hypothetical question in a sort of unspecified situation. The CPS and the police agreed definition of hate crime is used for the purposes of identifying and flagging only. The definition is any criminal offence which is perceived to be motivated by hostility or prejudice based on a person's actual or perceived disability, race, religion, sexual orientation or transgender identity. When flagged as a hate crime, the police would be satisfied that an offence has been committed and will then investigate evidence in support of the appropriate charge as well as the aggravated element of hostility. And it wouldn't be appropriate for me, as I've just said, to confirm whether this is an example which would constitute a hate crime or not. That would be an operational decision both for the police and the CPS based on the specific circumstances. And on the Austrian situation, the judgment doesn't raise any issues which require any further consideration by this government at this time.
I was hoping that the noble Lord Pearson was going to tell us that, like Mr Farage, he now found UKIP so awful that he too was leaving its ranks. Section 29J of the Public Order Act 1986, which was added, I understand, by this House during the passage of the Racial and Religious Hatred Act of 2006, states that, and I quote, "Nothing in this part shall be read or given effect in a way which prohibits or restricts discussions, criticism, or expressions of antipathy, dislike, ridicule, insult, or abuse of particular religions or the beliefs or practices of their adherents." In the light of those references to insult or abuse, does the government intend to reconsider the appropriateness of those two words in Section 29J in the current climate, which seem to conflict to some degree with the objective of the Racial and Religious Hatred Act 2006 and its protection for individuals from hatred and the fear of violence and harassment?
Well, my Lords, I think it's very careful that we balance the two issues, and insult or abuse. I know why the noble Lord has picked them out, because they sound quite strong words there. But insult and abuse and hatred are actually quite different things. But I do take the noble Lord's point that on the face of it, they seem quite strong words.
I was the police spokesperson after the 7th of July bombings in 2005 in London, when 52 innocent people lost their lives. And I was asked in a press conference whether I felt that this was the result of Islamic terrorism. And I said that I thought the phrase Islamic terrorism was a contradiction in terms. I went on to say that I believe the UK is a much better, more law-abiding country because we have a strong Muslim community. I believe that now as much as I did then. Would the Minister agree?
Well, I do agree with the noble Lord that the conflation of Islamism and Islamic is widespread, and that not only should we understand where the two terms come from, is Islamism, of course, coming from the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, but that Islam itself is a peaceful religion, and Muslims in this country contribute to the variety and the diversity of our country.
Would the Minister agree that all faiths should be treated equally and deplore the present practice of resources going to those who shout the loudest? There are no comparative statistics on hate crime for different faiths.
Well, I do agree with the Noble Lord that all religions should be treated equally, and I think the premise of some of our hate crime legislation absolutely underpins that equality in society, that no one is different. No one should feel that hate should be meted out upon them because of their religion, the colour of their skin, indeed their sexual orientation or their disability.
My noble friend agree that there's far too much hatred in the world at the present time, affecting all ages, and that a tragic incident recently of the Syrian refugee that occurred. And with the total pervasiveness of social media at the present time and its opportunity to spread hate in different directions, could she comment on the approach that would be taken to tackle that particular challenge that we now have?
Well, my noble friend raises a really important question about the proliferation of hate crime online. Of course, what is a crime offline should also be a crime online, and of course we are taking our online harms white paper through Parliament shortly. He's absolutely right to point out the case of that poor Syrian boy, but I'd also like to point out that sometimes out of these awful situations comes great kindness, and I understand that the British public have raised sufficient funds in fact a lot of funds for that family to support them through the terrible time that they've had.
The Lord Bishop of St Albans.